we need to, okay, we're set. Good afternoon. I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust. First order of business is to approve the minutes of the October 9, 2018 meeting, and I would recognize a motion to that effect.
Move approval.
It's been moved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. We'll vote. Approved. Next, we have the consent docket. I'd recognize a motion that the consent docket be approved, subject to individual consideration.
So moved, and subject to individual consideration.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any individual consideration items? Seeing none, we'll vote. Approved. Next item of business is, there's nothing in the concurrence docket, and there are no items for individual consideration. Are there any trustees who would like to make any comments? Therefore, we'll move into the general manager report.
Mr. Chairman and trustees, we have the monthly pro forma and financial status that shows that we're on target for the month and anticipate being on target for the next month. And we'll have a further discussion on our financial plan, quarterly financial plan, after this next presentation by Larry Hare, our engineer overseeing our spillway and dam rehabilitation project at Atoka.
Good afternoon. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to tell you about this project. What I have here in front of you is a rendering of what the final product will look like. So, and I'll go into more detail as to what it is that we're actually going to be looking at. So the Atoka Dam is an earthen dam. It was constructed in 1959. The top elevation of the dam is at elevation 600 feet above mean sea level. The spillway is at 590. In 2015, we had a huge drought-busting event that happened in May, and we had an approximately 100-year storm event that happened during that entire month, it seems like. And the peak elevation of the lake got up to 596.5. So we're getting pretty close to the top of the dam. And in that discharge, we estimate that we were having about 400 million gallons per hour going over this spillway. As a result, and through engineering assessment, we found that the crest of the spillway had been damaged and needed to be replaced. The spillway chute is undersized, and the stilling basin down here below has been destroyed and needs to be rebuilt. And in order to meet the state standards for passing 75% of the probable maximum flood for a dam, we have to raise the top of the dam by 7.5 feet. And to give you a scope of how what the damage of the damage to the spillway and area, this is the engineer's geologist standing right here. So that gives you a feel for the scope of how much has been destroyed. At the south end of the reservoir, there is a small berm that runs right around here that stops floodwaters from going over onto Highway 69. However, its elevation is at 602. So if we're raising the top of the dam by 7.5 feet to 607.5, we'll have to increase the height of the berm as well. And raising the height of the berm and height of the dam will not increase the storage capacity of the lake. Because the spillway itself will remain at 590. So with the heavy activity going on, because this is a great big earth-moving civil project, we've closed the lake road for Atoka, as you can see here in red, because this is the area of high construction. And it will remain closed to the public for the duration of the project, which will be in November of next year. I want to show you a couple of photos that we have over the course of the past few months. In August, here's like a beginning picture, and then here's what it looked like at the end of August, because they're doing a lot of clearing and grubbing. They've also breached the end of the spillway in order to allow water to come out of the lake. We're going to hold the lake at an artificially low elevation of 5 feet below full in order for them to build a small wall in the middle of this so they can build back the chute. Here's a small video of what they're doing out there as well. And I'm going to speed this up because the action starts right about there. What that rock blasting does is that it helps loosen up the hard rock in this area so that they can go ahead and excavate it with excavators and move it out of the way. In September, this is about mid-September when the lake was at its lowest elevation, so they were able to do quite a bit of work in this area. They've already started building some of the bypass for the new spillway so that when they build the wall, they'll have the water spill over this section right over here so they can tear out the rest of the spillway. And here's a look at that work on the other side. They're also doing a lot of excavating up on this hill in order to widen this area for the new chute. Also in September, they are reinforcing some of the stability of the rock using wire mesh and shotcrete. And along that, they'll be putting in rock anchors in order to hold that rock face in place so that it won't slough off. In October, this is a couple of drone pictures showing what's been done so far. As you can see, they've done quite a bit of widening in this area. But unfortunately, because of the heavy rains in September and in this month, the lake is still spilling over, and it's kind of like hampered their efforts within the work of the flume. But they're still working on the heavy earthwork. And here's a close-up of what that looks like. It looks about the same right now because today the lake elevation is about 587, so it's about a little over 2 feet of what our low elevation of 585 would be. And here's kind of like a comparison of what it looked like before construction and what our final product will look like. As you can see, the chute will be much wider in order to carry all of those heavy floodwaters. The stilling basin is going to be completely rebuilt with what we call dragon's teeth that will help slow the water down as it goes down the chute right here. And the shape of the spillway itself has changed. Instead of a long, narrow shape along the side here, we're having like a more wider area to be able to pass more water over it. We also are going to be putting in a rolled compacted concrete wall right here in order to protect the pump station and the City of Atoka's pump station from all of this swirling action going on whenever something like this happens. So I can take any questions if anyone is wanting to know anything.
Outside of weather, which is uncontrollable, when's the anticipated completion?
In November of next year.
Other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next presentation, Vanessa Aguilar, Revenue Auditor, and Nathan Madenwall, CIP Manager, will provide a financial plan and CIP plan update. We're planning on doing this every quarter as we go forward with implementing our 5-year CIP.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and trustees. Vanessa Aguilar. I'm going to go through the financial plan component of our presentation today. So overview, financial management is one of our core business initiatives that we maintain in the Utilities Department. We ensure through our long-term financial planning that we have the financial capacity to award our capital projects while also meeting our operations and maintenance needs on a day-to-day basis. So one of the key metrics and goals that we focus on when we're doing our monthly pro forma and our long-term financial plans, we make sure we maintain at least 90 days working capital days in our cash balances. We also ensure that our debt service coverage ratio is at a minimum of 2 times coverage. So this measures our ability to pay our debt service from our net revenues. And at a 2 times coverage, we're able to do that at 200%. Similarly, our fixed charge coverage ratio at minimum of 1 times. This is a measure of our ability to pay our debt service from our fixed revenues, which our goal of 1 times is a measure of 100%. We want to be able to pay 100% of our debt service from our fixed charges. And continuing on, our debt to pay-go funding, a ratio of 60-40. We don't want to become too over-leveraged, not incur too much debt, so 60% debt to 40% pay-go funding. And we maintain adequate cash reserves in accordance to our bond indenture requirements. All of these goals and key strategies have helped the utility maintain its AAA credit rating by Standard & Poor's and Moody's. To put into perspective, about 6% of the water and wastewater utilities across the nation have a AAA rating. This allows the trust to borrow at the lowest interest rates possible to the utility. So taking a closer look at our financial plan, we'll start with the water utility first. Our revenues for the water utility are expected to increase from $171 million to over $222 million in the 5-year period. The majority of our revenue source is made of our service charges as well as system development charges and other miscellaneous revenues. Our expenses, our operating expenses, primarily are composed of our city utility department operations, as well as our trust operations, McGee Creek, and non-rate activities, which are self-funded. And our operating expenses are expected to increase from over $80 million to $93 million in the 5-year period. Our debt service, as you can see here, is almost going to double in the 5-year period, going from $36 million to over $70 million. In our 10-year plan, we do expect our debt service to triple as we're incurring our capital plan in the 5-year and 10-year period. As you can see in our CIP, our capital improvement plan, our water capital projects are a total of $1.12 billion over the next 5 years, primarily due to the Atoka projects as well as our other ongoing capital projects on the water side. As you can see in the bottom here, our coverage that we monitor on a monthly and our long-term forecast, we're meeting our 2 times coverage as well as our 1 times coverage ratio. Similarly, for the wastewater side, our 5-year financial forecast, we have our service charges as our main revenue source as well as other fees and charges, system development charges. And our revenues for wastewater are expected to increase from about $105 million to almost $130 million in the 5-year period. Our operating expenses, similar to the water, are composed of our city operations, the trust operations, and our contracted wastewater services. The wastewater debt service is going from approximately $14 million to over $28 million, so our aggregate debt service is seeing the same pattern of doubling it over the next 5 years. The capital program for wastewater over the 5 years is smaller in scale compared to water. We're looking at funding about $428 million of improvements on the wastewater side. A portion of that is through our pay-go expenditures, with the remainder of it being funded through commercial paper. At the bottom, you'll see we still maintain our minimum 2 times coverage and our 1 times coverage within the 5-year period. Taking a closer look at our funding strategy for our capital plan, on the left you'll see stacked column chart there. In the blue we have the water funding sources, and in the green is the wastewater. Our pay-go components for water is about $68 million per year. For SRF, with the exception of FY19, which we have about $46 million in funding, the remainder of the years we have forecasted about $25 million for water. Our commercial paper funding for water is about $127 million per year. And on the wastewater side, we see a pay-go of about $47 million and a commercial paper funding of about $36 million for our wastewater projects. On the right, we have 2 pie charts to show our debt to pay-go funding. On the water, we do see a 70-30 debt to pay-go funding. However, on our wastewater, we are seeing a 45 to 55 split. So for an overall of the utility, we're looking at a 63 to 37 debt to pay-go over the 5 years. So we continue to monitor and ensure that our financial plan has the financial capacity to award our capital projects, and we continue to monitor this on a monthly basis as we report the monthly pro forma to you. And so with this in mind, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Nathan. He'll give you the capital update component.
Thank you, Vanessa. So if we first start looking, there you switched the mouse. So we first start looking at the water capital plan. Some of the key projects that we have within the 5-year capital plan include water supply improvements for the Second Atoka pipeline, interconnection of the Hefner and Draper systems for our resiliency, water treatment plant upgrades to Hefner and Draper, and doing main replacements within our water distribution system, and upgrades to our boosters. If we look at that, over there on the left, you can see the 5-year capital plan shows how much we're planning on spending per fiscal year, and then on the right is what our current layout is for this current fiscal year. So you can see what work we're planning on doing in fiscal year 2019. So second quarter, which is the quarter we're in right now, we have a couple of big projects that are getting ready to bid. Our Draper Clearwell project, which is on the order of $50 million, and then also our Booster Station 8 upgrades. And then in the fourth quarter, we'll have improvements for the Second Atoka pipeline. That's when we have those projected, which is why you see the big increase in the fourth quarter. So if we look at the areas we're doing around town, so here's a map of the overall Oklahoma City. And over on the right, you can see the legend for how we're categorizing each project, with the white being projects in the first quarter, blue being projects second, yellow for third, and fourth being red. So we're doing facility projects at the Draper Water Treatment Plant and at Booster Station 8. We'll be doing some improvements there at our Overholser plant, where we're doing the final component of our interconnection. We're doing some valve work there. And then we'll be doing some work with one of our lagoons at the Hefner Water Treatment Plant. If we look at the transmission main work we're doing, so the black lines that are added in there show the existing lines that are part of our main transmission system. The dashed lines are showing lines that were bid and are in construction from prior to this fiscal year. And the white lines are lines that we've recently bid in the first quarter, and then the remaining red lines shown are lines that we're going to be bidding in the fourth quarter of this year. And then if we look at replacements we're doing around town, we bid a little bit in this quarter for replacements, but we've got a lot of work to do still, so we're going to be bidding some in the third quarter and then the fourth quarter as well. If we go on to the wastewater side of our capital program, within the 5-year, we've got treatment plant upgrades. We're getting ready to award our asset management program contract. We'll be doing a few more relief mains that are part of our consent order, main replacements around town, and then doing improvements at our lift stations, and also doing some facility building improvements. Over the 5-year period, it's a little under, it's about $428 million, and then over there on the right, you can see how we're spending our money per quarter. We have some projects in the third quarter. We're getting ready to do 2 wastewater treatment plant projects, large relief main project as well, and then we'll be doing quite a bit of replacement work. We'll be bidding and awarding that in the third and fourth quarters as well. So, looking at where we're doing this at in town, those are the facilities that we're going to be doing work at. Those are the lift stations. We're going to bid those in the fourth quarter, and then we're going to bid 2 treatment plant projects in the third quarter, as well as a lift station on the west side of Draper in the third quarter. We'll be doing some relief main projects, as I indicated. The black lines are the lines that are in construction. White is the one that we bid in the first quarter of this year, and then the yellow one is the one we're going to be bidding next quarter. And then you can see the replacements added to the screen showing where we're going to be doing work. We're going to try to push out a lot of work in the third quarter for replacements, and then do some more in the fourth quarter as well. And then last but not least, showing where we're going to be doing our asset management work, The purple basin is where we're starting, but then the orange basin shown around town are where we're also going to be doing work during our 8-year program. With that, we'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Any questions?
I just want to thank Vanessa and Nathan for a great presentation, and I also want to thank Nathan, made a presentation to the City Council today, and he did a great job there.
Anything else? Thank you. Are you done? Are there any citizens to be heard? Seeing none, we're adjourned.